We're going to kick off, and so just once again, welcome everybody. Really appreciate the opportunity. I know these are difficult times, but hopefully it's a great thing to have the opportunity for the community to come together, the Tableau community to come together, share our knowledge, our experience and our passion. So it's a fantastic opportunity to do that. And we have a great round of speakers today. We're going to talk about some announcements later on as well. But with no further ado, I'm going to jump in. Now, just a couple of quick housekeeping things just before I do move into the presentation. We are recording this session, just so you all know. All the audience is already muted, so you're all on mute. If you do have any questions during the chat or during the talks, please use the Q&A area to post questions. If you've just got any general chat that you want to do with any of the other members, please by all means use the chat room and that sort of stuff. But if you've got any formal questions that you want to ask of the speakers, please feel free to use the Q&A area and we'll be monitoring that along the way. By way of a little bit of an introduction, again, we've got the great support of Tableau today, who actually set up our WebEx session for us. So thank you very much, Kayla and Carolyn. They're also on the call, so they're helping with some of the logistics and those sorts of things. And again, just to remind everybody that the session today is being recorded. Although, as I said, all of the audience participants are already muted, and we won't be sharing your images or screens. The only people you'll be seeing along the way will be myself and the speakers as we introduce them. We're going to be running through a fairly, quick agenda today. So today's agenda is one of our classic agendas where we're going to be doing three speakers. We've got three fantastic speakers who are going to be joining us today. Angela from Energy Australia, Keat, who's a full stack developer and has been doing some work for a Singapore startup, and he's going to show us some interesting technology integration using Slack. And then we've got Paul Tanner, who's from Australia Post, and some of you, I'm sure, will be used to seeing Paul. He's one of our very regular attendees at our Tableau user groups here in Melbourne along the way. I'm also going to wrap up at the end with a quick, there's a job announcement, one job announcement that came through in the last couple of months that I'm going to post up there. So I'll give you some details there. And there's a few little things that you might want to just make sure you hang around for, because there's some information from Tableau about some free training and some great resources available to do with COVID data if you're interested in doing some participating in the societal conversations and those sorts of things as well. Once again, thanks everybody for joining. We've got a great audience so far. We're up to about 120, 130 people, so fantastic. Now, I'm also going to kick off. I just want to share with you a sort of a fun feature of the day, if you like, something that I've been looking at in Tableau over the last couple of months, and I've actually started looking at it early in the beta releases, and that's to do with animation features that have been introduced into Tableau. I'm not sure whether many of you are aware of that. Just by way of introduction, just so you know who I am, my name is Paul Hodge. I am the moderator of the Tableau user group here in Melbourne. Again, welcome to all those who are outside of the Melbourne area this time. One of the advantages of having a remote call is that we can welcome a wider range of people with passions for Tableau. But I've been around for a while. As you can see here, I started out in communications, telecommunications, ended up in consumer goods and life sciences. I lived in Tokyo and Hong Kong during the 90s, and during the 2000s, I lived in New York. One of those sort of fun memory joggers is that I managed to climb Mount Fuji at one stage, which is a fun experience if you ever get a chance to do that. One of those sort of crazy things that foreigners do when they're in foreign lands. A really fun experience if you get a chance to do that. And also ran the New York Marathon a couple of times actually, but when I was a lot younger and carrying a lot less weight. These days, I actually share my time between working as an advisor on a tech startup that I helped co-found here in Melbourne that deals with metadata management at the enterprise level, all very, very complicated stuff. And then I also, the rest of my time, I do lecturing at universities on topics of data visualization. and also run workshops and coaching sessions for large corporations. So that keeps me out of trouble most of the time. So the thing that I want to show you today is this idea of animation, and how animation is really a new facet of the visual landscape. Now, I say new, it probably really came into first real notoriety by a TED talk by a gentleman called Hans Rosling. Some of you may know that name. Did some fantastic visual presentations, and in particular did a fantastic presentation on the relationships between GDP, gross domestic product, and life expectancy over a 200-year period, and really showed some very interesting information. So if you want to, it's a great talk to go out and do a quick TED Talk search and look for that. But more recently, you may have seen these sorts of things called race charts. So here, this is a quick little video of one that I've got done here, one that I actually did in Tableau, just to show you a little bit about what I'm talking about. And this is the idea that what we've got here is a ranked bar chart showing various population, and it's counting up by year. And you can see that New York is now starting to slide down the list, while Mumbai and Delhi are starting to slide up the list. And we've got this animation where bar charts are actually, the bars are actually sorting, but you can see them traveling. And so what we've got is this whole idea of this sort of new dimension to information. And just by way of the sort of the theory here is that what we've really got is, many of you will probably know from data visualization sort of 101, is that we have sort of visual elements like size and color, position, angle, shape, texture, and even connection that brings concepts together, brings information together. And we've got our data elements on one side, and we've got our visual elements on the other side. And really what animation is effectively yet one more feature into these elements. So while historically we would have always talked about things like combinations of size and color, position, shape, connection, angle, those sorts of things, we've really now got this new piece of information, which is movement. And it's not that movement is just decoration for the sake of decoration. The eye actually perceives these movements. And when we move from just simply seeing static images to seeing movement in ranking, it becomes much more informative. And again, just as a quick example, here's a simple scatter plot. And this is one that we might have done using the existing features in Power in Tableau, where I'm going to play the little video again. And what you're going to see is up here, I'm flicking through the years. So this is 2002, 2003, 2004, 2005. And all I'm doing is paging through the data. This particular data happens to do with the magic quadrant. We can see Tableau sort of come onto the page there and move up into the leaders quadrant. And we're still going through 2017, 2018, 2019, 2020. And here we can see the latest magic quadrant chart. And so doing a chart like that wouldn't have necessarily been a complicated thing for people to have done previously. All you're doing is using the time, or in this case, the year dimension, and we're cycling through the pages. If I go to the next page, which is the after page, and I run the little animation now, what I've done now is I've taken exactly the same information, but just switched on a feature called animation. And if I've got time, which I've got a couple more minutes, I'll show you how you do that in Tableau now. But I'm just going to play this one, and this one's exactly the same data. So starting up in 2002 and progressing through the years. But now what you'll see is that the bubbles are actually now moving, and they're actually moving from one place to another. And you can now see Tableau enter in, and Tableau's now moving and moves into the leaders quadrant, and then moves around inside the leaders quadrant following around a pattern. And so this idea that we've now got movement as opposed to just simply one page moving to another page actually illustrates and catches our eyes. Let me play that again for you. So you can actually see the movement actually, where the dots actually sort of move from one place to another. And our eyes pick up on the distance that something travels in a period of time, and that in itself starts to inform information, which is really, really critical. And so if I jump out and show you exactly where that actually happens, let me go out and show you how you actually activate this in Tableau. So I'm going to open up that Magic Quadrant dashboard, and all you literally do. Oh, I've got a background failure. It's okay. Just my graphic didn't come through, but that's okay because I moved it into an archive folder. So I've got animations. So I just want to make sure I've got the animations turned off. So animations here. There's an option under formatting. If they're turned off, come on. Oh, there we go. If they're turned off, which they are, when I move through these steps, so here I am at, if I move this all the way back to 2002, if I step, you'll see that it's just stepping from one slide to the next slide, as if they're effectively foils in a cartoon effectively. And I'm just stepping from one place to another, one place to another, one place to another, one place to another. But if in fact now I go up and I actually go up to format and go to this simple new option here, which some of you might not have been aware of, it went into beta about 2 or 3 cycles ago. I'm running this. This is actually the release 2020.1. So this was the first release, and it's also in the beta. I'm in the beta program for 2020.2 as well. But this is actually the released version. And if you just simply go on to animations, you get this animation panel over here, which is a new panel. And you can just simply switch on is the simplest thing you need to do. And once I've switched that on, if I reset this again, what you'll see now is when I move from item to item, we'll see the buttons actually now move. The dots actually now move from one location to another location. And all of that smooth animation is automatically calculated by Tableau. And what's really clever is they've managed to achieve this across not only scatter plots, which is the classic area where this would have been done, but also across bar charts and across bubble charts, and any type of chart has got some level of animation. Now, it's still a work in progress, and I'm sure they'll continue to improve it over time, but that's, broadly speaking, that feature of the day. So take a look at that when you get a chance. It's a lot of fun, and can bring some real new dimensions of information into our presentations and into our dashboards. So as I mentioned before, we've got 3 great speakers. The first of our speakers is going to be Angela. So I'm going to now pass across to her, and she's going to run through. Don't forget, if you've got any questions, please use the Q&A as you're going along, and we'll try and get to any questions as we get to towards the end. But thanks very much, everybody.
Hi, everyone. It's really exciting to be here as one of the first, I guess, Melbourne Tableau Meetup virtual speakers. But it's nice to be here. Just a little bit about me. Today, I'm going to talk about a lifestyle management analysis I did. It's just going to keep it really simple, a little variety of a bunch of stuff. So pretty much, I'm currently at Energy Australia as a customer insights lead in data automation. We've got some analytics experience, a black belt in Six Sigma. You'll find some process stuff that I love, and just a background in analytics for several years. So I'm just going to move on because I know we've got a lot of great speakers today. So when I start with an analysis, something that's really important to me is a hypothesis, and I think it's sometimes the actual hardest part of an analysis is coming up with, well, what decision am I trying to make? Why do I want to make this decision? Who am I showing this to? Is it just me? Is it a technical audience? Is it executives? Is it a variety? So the hypothesis I came up with today, I'm actually gonna tell you a little about. I'm gonna go through my lifestyle in the past 6 months. And you'll be able to see a little bit how it changes. But what's important to me is actually understanding how I can maintain my happiness. And while I was putting this, thinking of this analysis, I said, well, you know what? I'm a bit type A. So the more accurately I could plan my day, the happier I actually am overall. I really like, I don't like delays. I like to know what to expect. I like to be on time. So I think for me, that's a hypothesis that I really want to try to prove when I look at my day-to-day tasks. So coming back out, I also use this puzzle Prezi, because like really who hasn't done a puzzle in quarantine right now? Like seriously, everybody has to, and they are like the best. Anyways, but so um when I started this analysis, what's really important to me and where I found Tableau shined is that it allows me to build and connect my data with, as we know, Tableau works with so many different inputs. But what I use here is Trello, which is the task management tool that is pretty popular these days. So as you can see here, here's an example of a Trello ticket. And what's key here for me is I use a repeatable template, which over time, when I'm adding in all my daily tasks, they all come in the exact same way. So this repeatable template, as you can see here, I've put in some hidden little commas and separators and stuff. And I put an estimated duration of how long each task will take me and an actual duration. Same thing for travel time, estimated travel time and actual travel time. A couple other things that would be important to me, like travel method, the category, and a sentiment. Sentiment is in essence my score of happiness. So that's how I can actually identify my hypothesis, then will link directly back to my hypotheses. Now, exporting this data from Trello, this is a QR code that goes directly to this link, so you don't have to write this whole link down, you just scan this QR code. Even though this will be recorded, I thought that might be a little bit easier. And you can export the data from Trello in JSON, ODBC, WDC, whatever is easiest for you. I'm just going to keep it simple, do it in Excel. But there's a community link that tells you how to export data from Trello, or Jira is the same thing. So it's pretty straightforward. So I'm actually just going to jump into my demo. I'm going to go through a custom split, some cool little free text search, and just some parameter usage. So I'm just going to pop out of there. And so I'm going to start actually with bringing my data in. So I've imported I've done, your typical just connected data and imported the Trello extract. And one thing that I think is kind of something that Tableau does so well, that I think blows Excel out of the water, as usual with most of the things, is it's actually a custom split feature. So I was able to create my own data in my Trello card of whatever I wanted, however I wanted, and I was able to split it. Now, you might have noticed there's a little asterisk inside my card, and that's because Tableau can split the data, but they only split up to 10 times. So I split it with an asterisk because I have more than 10. And then you can see here it splits it twice because I had an asterisk there to split it twice. And then I go into this split and I'll custom split it again, and I had a colon separating all my other fields. So I split it again, and it has found my 10 splits. Now, what I was able to do is just take a look at that. I see location was my first field, and then here I can just go down and I can put in all the rest of my fields. I'll do country, so this is pretty easy. And I can actually now, I see, where's my split 2, split, what do I have here? Oops, let me start over here. So I've got split 3, should give me my country, and then split 4 should give me everything else. So now I know that split 4 here represents my country. So here I can just rename it, and now I have a country field. And then I can just get rid of split 3 because I really don't need it anymore. So I've actually been able to go through and create all of my metrics. Some of them are, then change this to geographic role if I want to as well, which is great. So that's the beauty of the split feature. And I've literally just created my own data pretty much out of whatever I want. So then I'll go back to my other demo. So here's for something, this is like a cooking show actually. Here's something I created earlier. So I'm just going to go in here, and what I was able to create. Now, I think when comparing, what I really want to do is compare my actual estimates to my estimates, but my actual timing to my estimates. So what I was able to do here is I'm just going to create this simple bullet chart, which I think are completely useful. One of the best things to tell the story of how your data is actually presented. So just a bullet chart, super simple as you see here. I want to know that sentiment score, and then I'm just going to throw in, same as I did here, my estimate versus my actual. So I've got my actual type here, and then I've got my estimate here as well. And then I can just go down here, and since I've met the criteria for my dimension and measures, I've got my bullet chart. However, it does this for me every time. It actually has switched my metrics around. So I want my estimate actually to be the little bar, and my estimate to be this tiny little black bar, and the estimate to be the other way. So I'm just going to swap the reference lines, and then I can just switch this around, and then I'm just going to hold control down and make sentiment my color, which I think is just so easy to do. And then I can just put any labels and stuff I want, just literally in 2 seconds. Tableau is the best, and you can do your formatting and stuff so you can get to this point. It's really great. So then a couple other things I just want to show you. I'm just going to jump over to a dashboard that I created earlier. Now this dashboard has all of my cards in here, but it does a really great job of showing me the way I created this formula. I said, okay, well, if I know an overestimation of my time is bad, so I've made that a negative number. And anytime I overestimate, I said, well, this is bad. So, or bad or negative. I won't say it's bad yet, because that, it's not necessarily always bad. As you can see, my, Europe holiday in Italy means me spending more time there. Definitely not bad. However, so some of these things actually still give me positive sentiment. For a little bit longer time in Italy, it was only a 3. It wasn't like a 1 or a 2. However, what I want to do here is use the search bar. I've actually created a search bar using parameters, just to say, let's say I wanted to see something that was social. If I spell it right. And then all the cards that have something to do with me being social come up. But you can see that even though I've underestimated, I still think they're positive, which is really awesome. Or what if I say here, train, for when I take the train? You can see that the Australian Metro or Melbourne Metro is I'm not really a fan of it, especially on days where it makes me late for work. So, and this search feature is really cool, because if you have a bunch of data and you just want to find something similar, you can go through and figure that out pretty quickly. So I'll just jump in here where I've created it, and it's really, really simple. So you just use your parameters. You create just a simple search parameter, and here I'll show you my formula. The formula is just, and I have it in my PowerPoint as well, it contains lower, put your card name in, and then you reference the parameter. And then I can put or if I wanted it to be able to search additional fields. So that was pretty cool. And then I'm going to jump over to time analysis. And Paul, looks like great minds think alike, because I've also included a dashboard with some animation. So here, I had a really, really great past 6 months. I went to the US, I went to Europe, did a little traveling for work. It was kind of awesome. And then down here, I've actually mapped all my sentiment. So if I start back here, start on December 2nd, and I can actually just go through, I can hit play. Now, since these are both on the same dashboard, and I've used due date, the due date that was in Trello as my animation metric, they both actually animate at the same time. So you'll see them actually go through, and now I have a time series down here actually showing me all my sentiment as I go through. And then up on top, I have how I go, my sentiment in regards to where I've traveled. And then the colors down here are actually the type of ticket I've done. And then I just put they're organized by sentiment. What gets really interesting out here is, as I started to move home for the quarantine, at first I was kind of like, oh, this isn't so great. And then I was like, you know what? It's not that bad. I'm liking being from home, getting my home workouts in. I'm working and it's not bad. So you can actually tell the story here of where I am and how I've actually improved. And that's to Paul's point with animation. That's what it just tells the story a little bit differently. You can talk through it and actually show um, your journeys, and it's actually so much more impactful. Yes, it grabs your eye. It allows you to just create that storyline, and as Tableau does it so easy. So I might just jump back into my map. So all I really did here was up here, I just put the due date in. I've got all my other, I'm able to just create the map as usual. Simply just drop due date in here, and then I can put the due, same thing, I put the due date of that I put on the card in here as well, and just created a simple time series chart using a circle as a metric, and it was really easy. So that's that for that presentation. I'll just pop back out to my PowerPoint. So that's my demo. These are a couple of the formulas I use, some parameters, which are always quite nice. And this is a closer look at the ticket. If you can see the colon that I use to separate as my separator as well. So, and there's my asterisk. So that's how I had to separate the card, and it actually works a bit of magic, which is good. So just some use cases for this. Obviously, I do not have my tasks organized by in the Trello board for every little thing I do. I am type A, but I'm not type A plus. But in any case, we do use a simple version of this in data automation. We actually use it for capacity management. So what we do is we have all of our cards in a Trello board, and we can actually decide what mix of tasks will yield best results. So we can prioritize very easily what we have to do. We can also monitor and control capacity. So we're able to see, oh, at this month, we're at 110% capacity. We certainly can't take any more work on. And then finally, this is a really great proof point if we actually need more resources. So it's really useful for us to look at all of our cards and put them into Tableau, and we feed that in on a normal basis, and we just say, hey, how are we going? How's our resourcing? And it's actually it's really, really useful for that. So in a work life, it's powerful for us. So that's it for me. If you have any questions, feel free to stay connected. I'm in all the.
Hey, Angela. Paul, it's Paul. Fantastic. Good, great. Thanks very much for sharing that. Lots of very revealing personal information there. I love the fact that your sentiment has been increasing as you accept the situation that we're all stuck in. So I think we're all sort of going through that learning curve along the way. One question that did come up online was the repeatability of the import. And in fact, Paul chimed in a little bit as well with some thoughts about it. But can you speak a little bit to repeatability? Did you have to reset up the the splits each time you re-import again, and maybe what happens if you change things in Trello? How adaptable are those splits? Do you have any sort of feelings and thoughts about repeatability?
Yeah, 100%. So this is one thing why we use Tableau as well. So every time I import a new version, so for example, use JSON, there's all those APIs, everything you can actually, if you have the time to hook up to Tableau. But every time we do a new import, all I do is just save the file, and Tableau points to it and refreshes. Everything refreshes completely, so completely new. I don't have to resplit. I don't have to do anything. It reads the data. It holds the splits. So for example, if I added June data, I could look at this, and then all of a sudden, when I refresh the import, so I come over here, I can just refresh, and it'll refresh the extract because I have a live extract connecting to the same file. It'll refresh the extract. If I were to come out here, I'll see June. So it actually remembers all the formulas. It remembers all your formatting. Now, the important thing is you need to, the one thing you do need to do is remember that your template generally cannot change. So
Okay.
if you were to add another field here at the bottom, you have to make enough, make sure that Tableau accounts for all the splits, and it only goes up to 10 splits. So if you put in another split, it won't grab it. And if you were to change, for example, this name, it will miss this name and it'll just put your number in here. If this isn't a number, it'll null it out when you do make, because it's looking for a number field. So it will null out if I say, if this, if I say, was this fun? And this says yes, and for the 45 is actually a yes, it'll just null it out when it pulls the data and it won't break or anything.
Right, right. So the usual sort of structural consistency that you need to make sure is there.
Yeah,
okay,
that's
fantastic. Great.
Mhm.
Great. All right. And so people can email you if they're interested in a little bit more detail, because I'm sure there's plenty of people out there using Trello who would love to be able to do some of this sort of integration. If they email you or connect to you via LinkedIn, you'll share the presentation with them and some of the knowledge if they've got questions.
Of course, happy to do that. And there's so much to learn in Tableau. So this is just scraping the surface of what we use. So there's a bunch of stuff. So yeah, all good. Feel free to contact me. Happy to help anywhere I can.
Fantastic. Well, thanks again, Angela. That was wonderful. Absolutely wonderful. All right, so that's our first speaker. Our next one is going to be Keat. And in fact, interestingly, it wasn't intended to be a theme, but Keat's going to talk about some other integration. So Keat's going to share with some integration around integration actually with Slack robots, which is really a very, very interesting topic. And we're actually going to do a little bit of he and I are going to do a little bit of a live demo with Slack. And as you know, live demos are always a little notorious. So hopefully everything works together. But we'll pass over to Keat now, and I'll let you kick off and do the intro and set the context, Keat.
Hey everyone. Yeah, let's hope the demo goes smoothly. My name is Keat. I'm a full stack data scientist at Mellino, which is a startup based in Malaysia, Kuala Lumpur. I'm going to talk about how I'm integrating Tableau into Slack in my workplace. A little bit of context here. Mellino is the startup that I'm working for. It's a digital health solution where we provide 360 degrees to help people deal with mental health and chronic diseases, because there's a huge disproportionate ratio of patient to psychologists in Southeast Asia. And with the current solution and one-to-one consultation that we have for psychologist to patient, we are unable to scale and help all these people. So the idea of selling Mellino is to scale psychologists, so psychologists can have consultation with at least 200 people a month. We recently just closed our pre-series A, actually 2 Fridays ago, and it's like a 1.1 million, and it's a startup based in Kuala Lumpur with 40 staff. So what do I do there? I was brought in to be the BI manager at the very beginning, where we use Tableau to do our reporting. And because as a startup, revenue is not something that we get usually. So the only thing that we could keep track and to sell to investors are our users' engagement. So that's why BI reporting and reporting via Tableau was very important to us. And then I ventured to be doing data science and recently data engineering, building the data pipeline and all sorts. So what we hear today, just like every other early stage startup like Mellino, right? We wear multiple hats, and we use Slack a lot too. Slack is our main collaboration tool. We use that so often that we have multiple workflows and automations within Slack that whenever we start working, we don't leave Slack. So that we do everything in Slack, so you don't have to switch contacts around every day. And we also use Tableau, like I mentioned earlier, as our reporting, where I make reports for user engagement and how to help the psychologists talk to the users based on that. So what's the problem here? There's a gap between the tools. Because we're early stage in BI adoption and I was the first hire, we had a lot of ad hoc requests that it's really hard to meet. And we also have issues of getting information quick enough from Tableau and into Slack. So the time to insight in the context of Slack combo is very important because we will have a lot of conversation and I'll just be sending the data back to them and they will assume that that is the right data without, discussing it over our Tableau dashboards. And also we have varying skills in the company. As I mentioned earlier, we have psychologists, dietitians, financial planner, physio, and all sorts of professions. And they have various skills in looking at charts. So that's why it's very important for us to bring Tableau into Slack so we can discuss about it over Slack itself. So just like everyone else, I'm lazy. I just want to make things easier for both myself and the people who wants to use data to make decisions. So I decided to add an integration to Slack. So before on the left, you could see that someone would write me and ask about the product, and I would say, all right, I'll let you know in 5 minutes. I'll go to Tableau, log in, and go to look at the chart, and I'll come back and say like it's 42, and then all right, and then that person sees 42, and then ask more question, and I'll just go back to Tableau again, filter it to a specific region, let's say a Western region, and I'll go back and I'll say, oh, this is the answer. It's like, not that different from 42. And what I was trying to achieve with this is I want to have an integration where during the conversation itself, I could just I just could make an API call to Tableau and get the chart into our Slack conversation itself. And ideally, then we can have a conversation over the Tableau dashboard and the data within Slack. So I'm going to show you how it looks like in real life. This is just a screenshot of it. So I might need Paul's help on this.
Yep, I'm ready to go.
Right. So this is our Tableau, right? It's like Monday morning. You just got to work and you haven't had your coffee yet. And Paul, your coworker, is like writing you early in the morning. I say, yeah. Hi, Paul.
So I'm sort of, I'm saying, hey, Kay, can you let me know the latest product numbers? So I might just sort of shoot out a question like that.
I would say like, sure. Check out this new integration that I integrated over the weekend. So it's a Slack integration where I just do get data and type product, which is the name of the dashboard that Paul was asking for, and I'll press enter. And that's what happens during demo. And I'll have the bot working on it, pulling the data from our Tableau dashboard from the company. And because it's going to take a couple of seconds, I can go and get my coffee while I'm waiting. Or coffee, if you have an espresso, it usually takes 3 to 4 seconds. And that's a perfect time. And I'll just catch up with Paul, like, and say, how's the weekend?
It was great.
Barbecue?
Always.
There we go. And now we have the dashboard back in Slack itself.
So I can say, wow, that's great. So you've given me that directly, but that's for all regions, I guess. So I might say,
right, that's for all regions.
Can you give me the West region only?
Oh, I'll say sure. I just added a new filter function too. What I have to do is to get the same dashboard, it's called product, and then I'll press the filter option and then do a VF region. So he wanted West, Paul wanted West, so I'm gonna do West. And hopefully this is correct. So sometimes I'll forget, I'll just have this as a helper for me to remember how to do the filter option within Slack itself. I'll just work on the request again. I probably am pretty caffeinated by now. So we have the dashboard back and it's filtered to West region, all within Slack itself. It's delivered back into our Slack. And yeah.
And I might be interested, can I actually get to the live dashboard?
Oh yeah, so I also included the link to it. So when you click on it, it's filtered to region equals to West. So we'll look at it and we'll wait. So we got region equals to West, and this is a whole Tableau dashboard that Paul requested for, and he could like go in there and play around with it. And that's about it. So what I did there was I created a Slack bot that calls a function within Google Cloud function, which is this one. And the Google Cloud function will interact with the Tableau API to pull the data out. So when I do this get data product, what is happening is the cloud function, this is a code written in Python. What it does is it sign into my Tableau, get the domain website and get the token, get a view, get image of the dashboard, and then in the end post Slack message to send it back to Slack. And then sign out after that just to be safe. So all that happens when right after I press the command in there. And if you look at the logs, we'll probably see that being called couple of seconds ago, and it's being processed by Google Cloud Function. And if you're not familiar with the cloud platform, Google Cloud Function provides 1 million requests for free every month. So this whole integration costs me nothing so far, but I'll go into that much later. So that's the demo of the Slack integration that I built 2 years ago, actually, that I was still using now without, with very low maintenance for us to get data within Slack. So why did I do that, right? Why is it important? Well, because as we've witnessed earlier, we want the integration of Tableau within our Slack conversations, that the whole conversation discussing about data becomes more organic within Slack itself, and that helps support the culture of using data when we make decisions. It's Monday morning. Paul is very curious and what to do with the salesperson in the West region, and we'll discuss with data and the dashboard all within Slack itself. And it allows other people to do self-service insight within Slack itself without coming to me and asking me for numbers. They could just all do the same Slack / command and get the dashboard themselves within Slack itself. And if needed, they want to. So what happened is when you do a snapshot, you lose the animations and the interactivity. Which is why I decided to provide the link so they could go into the dashboards themselves to examine it and play with the cool animations that just came out from Tableau recently. So I mean, this Slack integration thing is not new. There's actually similar products. Actually, I'm not selling. There are actually products in the marketplace that you could do the same by integrating Slack into Tableau into Slack. There are two available options right now. One of them is Pushmetrics, and another one is Kiwi. And it costs $99 per month, and it only allows you 500 queries per month, but unlimited users. So the number of users that you could use it in Slack is pretty much unlimited. But the limit is 500 queries per month. It's pretty much out of the box. That's very little customization that you can do with the product that you buy off the shelf. And the other option is building my own, which we saw earlier. Basically, everything is free. Slackbot is free. You just have to do a couple of steps, connect the API to it, and then you have to build a Google Cloud function. I wrote it in Python, and like I mentioned earlier, your first million requests per month is free. So imagine if you have 1,000 people in your company, that's 1,000 requests per month per person, as compared to 500 queries per month. It requires development, but it's flexible. I did the calculation. It took me 4 to 6 hours for the whole integration that I built 2 years ago. And I think the economic costs and the financial costs of it was worth it. And also because we were a startup, so we were pretty cost sensitive. So we decided to build our own. So if you decide to build our own, how does it look like? Where do you start? First of all, so in order to build the // there are a couple components to it. First, you need to use the / command to send a request to the cloud function, and the cloud function will talk to the REST API, Tableau REST API, where it signs in, get the images, pull the data, and send it back to Slack. So the bottom part is the Tableau components, and the top part is the code components and the Slack components. So for the Tableau components, there are 2 ways of going about doing it. What I did was I used Tableau REST API, which is used to talk to Tableau server and online, and it's not just pulling images, right? What you could also do is to use the same API. If you want to integrate it within Slack, you can use it to refresh data source in Tableau, add a user. You could even do user management within Slack itself, get view images, which was what I did. And sometimes if you have exec who want to see a PDF report every week, you can automate it to download a workbook PDF and get it uploaded into Slack every week. And you can adjust, edit, add, update, data-driven alert, all within using the REST API. And if you integrate within Slack, you can do it. You could do it all within Slack itself. And the other option is Tableau Server Client, which is a Python library that does all the Tableau REST API. It's also another option to go about doing it, but because when I was building it 2 years ago, it was not well documented, but it is much better now. If anyone wants to build the same thing, I would recommend you to go the Tableau Server Client path. And then step 2 is to build the Slackbot components. The first one is you have to build the cloud function with the Tableau REST API. The Slackbot components, you just have to write the code, put it in Google Cloud function, talk to the Post API endpoint, add the app in the workspace, and let the app talk to the Google Cloud function. So what did I learn from this, right? That some of the products that save a lot of your time, it's not that difficult to build. And especially with Tableau, there's so much support. The community is amazing. Tableau developers community is amazing. So you could build all this yourself if you have 4 to 6 hours and you have the Python background or Node.js background to build it. And in hindsight, I would say if I were to build everything again, I would choose the Tableau Server Client path. It's so much easier to implement. It's a Python library. You don't have to go through the whole REST API to figure out which request to send and which response that you're going to get and how to deal with each response. And also, please sign up for Tableau Developer. You get a free Tableau online sandbox for you to test all of this, to play around with capabilities of Tableau with the REST API. What are the future options with this? Like where can I go with this Slack bot thing? You could do a whole Tableau server, Tableau online user management all within Slack itself. And as I mentioned earlier, I just automating weekly workbook PDF being sent to Slack. I just implemented this recently at my workplace. And if someone is always using the slash command, you can also bring in the recommended views for that user based on the user background. And also managing user access, such which I mentioned earlier. Yeah, and that's about it for my presentation. If you have any question, feel free to
Keat,
email me.
So,
yeah.
So it's Paul. Paul, fantastic. I mean, it's just the first time I saw this, I loved it. The second time I saw it, I loved it. The third time I've seen it, I've loved it. So thanks very much for sharing your experience. A couple of very quick questions that came up that I wonder if you can speak to. The first one is, in order to integrate Tableau into Slack, do we need, I guess that's whether the consumer and or the developer, do they need Slack admin rights as well?
Not necessarily. You could build your own app, and then you can choose whether you can integrate it into the workspace of Slack.
Okay. Okay. So you can build sort of individual user sort of spaces, can you?
Yep. But it's better if you do, so it's much easier for you to do a lot of things.
Okay.
There's no limitation. If you do not have admin access, you can still build it.
Okay. And then the second question is sort of more of a general question, which is, did you consider any security concerns when you were integrating into Slack? You know, like, I guess the question there that I would immediately ask is, would you typically, you might not have in your development, but could you pass the Slack credentials onto Tableau to make sure that, you know, maybe there's row level security being affected and other types of security considerations? What did you do in terms of security considerations?
What I did was I was using Google Cloud password encryption to pass the encrypted password when I'm doing this, and all of it is ran in SSL, which is usually pretty safe for if it carries PII or any credentials.
Okay. All right, cool. Okay, so, well, again, thanks very much. So you're happy for people to reach out to you via LinkedIn if they want a little bit more information and if they've got any more detailed questions?
Yeah, feel free to connect with me via LinkedIn, or if you have any questions regarding the code, can write me an email, and I'm more than happy to share it with everyone.
Fantastic. All right, great. Well, thanks very much again, Keat. That was absolutely fantastic. So we've got one more speaker, our last speaker, which is Paul Tanner from Aussie Post. He's going to give us a sort of a potpourri of information and that sort of stuff as well. So please welcome Paul to the podium. Thanks very much, Paul. I'll let you take over.
Thanks, Paul. I'm discussing some ways that we can customize our engagement with Tableau content to be ideally suited to the user base. Now, I will be covering a lot of content, but I have the advantage that this is being recorded. So if you really want to go back and check something, you will be able to do that. So today I'm calling my little presentation, Challenging the Norms. Now, I'm Paul, and as Paul Hodge said in one of the emails earlier, I'm a self-confessed Tableau fanboy, and look at me getting excited about measures and dimensions. It's my Twitter handle and the name of my blog. I chose Tableau fanboy because it's a bit silly and it's nice and easy to remember, but it's also pretty appropriate because I'm a massive fan. I use Tableau desktop and Tableau server pretty much all day, every day. And I've been lucky enough to be doing that as a specialist developer and consultant for about 7 years. For the last couple of those years, I've been working with the BI reporting team of Finance at Australia Post. Before I started specializing with Tableau, I spent about 15 years in web design and web development. So this experience has not only led me quite neatly into Tableau development, but in particular, it's provided the foundation of the strategy that guides the way that I develop content when using Tableau. So that strategy is one that's heavily towards the front end and focuses on the UI or the user interface and usability in general. I try to always think of the customer, the user, and how successfully they will engage with the content. So often this requires that we push the boundaries, we go beyond the off-the-shelf options and challenge the norms. If you're not Australian, you might not understand why I've got one of those pictures in there, but anyway. Before I get more specific about this approach, I'd like to demonstrate some extreme boundary pushing, some of the absolute brilliance produced by a selection of the rock stars of the Tableau community. Starting with this view, which shows across the 360 degrees of a circle, the days of a year and how many countries around the world celebrate holidays on those days. Next up, we're looking at what's called a spiral bar chart. No, I think I've just forgotten the name for a moment there. But anyway, this is an analysis of the Boston Red Sox baseball team in their history. And then we've got a Pokemon comparator. So here, it's a very cute little tool. It allows you to look at the different pocket monsters and see what their characteristics are and compare one to another. It's very easy to use, and I think there's probably no one out there with a straight face who could say that they reckon this was made with Tableau. It looks nothing like the stuff that people generally produce using Tableau. Next up, this is a really great viz by Yvette Kovacs and Klaus Schulte. This was presented at one of the worldwide conference presentations last year. And if we zoom in, we can see in the middle, we're looking at what is pretty much understandably a bar chart or a column chart as they're vertical, but then they've factored in those extreme values that bust right out of the scale. So we go up, we go left, we go right round the whole viz to see where, in this case, unfortunately, we're finding excessive amounts of microplastics in the ocean around the world. Next up, we've got this beautiful infographic of the overuse of natural resources around the world. Now, again, if I didn't know there's something that was made by Tableau, I wouldn't have guessed it. I'd be asking for some reference information to find out what tool was used. So I think it's a really good example. Now, one thing in particular, especially because I do know that this is made by Tableau, is this little area in the middle where you can see lots of circles and column charts. That whole thing there is one single worksheet. I think that is so impressive. And if I just go to the next slide, there we go. That's in Tableau Desktop. That section, one worksheet. Amazing. Then we have this beautiful analysis of the Beatles music. What's to say here? It's a gorgeous color scheme. It's an undeniably charming subject matter. Who doesn't love the Beatles? It's very easy to see how all the different components link together, and it's inherently usable because you can look and see how all the songs link to years and the colors match the authors and then the subject matter. It's just a really, really fun little piece of work. Next up, we're looking at Yvette Kovacs again. She's done an analysis of national anthems around the world. Now, I just want to focus in on this elegant curve. These curves here, these are all plotted with calculations in Tableau. Just really great stuff. Now, the next couple are really just over the top ridiculous. All of these elements to make up this reproduction of the girl with the pearl earring, they're all pie charts. This next one, All of these elements are polygons. In fact, most of them are triangles. Crazy stuff. Now, I'm sure you're thinking, like, how do these examples possibly relate to data context? Well, for the most part, they don't. But what they do achieve, though, is they expose us to the possibilities of what can be produced using Tableau. And if you find a part of one of these amazing dashboards that you want to learn more about, or even reproduce in your own work, you can usually download the workbook from Tableau Public and examine the components. And quite often there will be an accompanying blog post with a tutorial explaining how to do it. Hopefully you can identify elements that you could use, which will then enable your users to engage with Tableau content in a way that's more comfortable and familiar, it's more readable, easier to tell what's going on, and there are aspects of the viz that give it a bit of personality and make it fun to use. Some things that I think about when thinking about design is that is the design balance. For example, is there a suitable balance in the color palette? Is there enough white space? Is the design consistent? So good examples there is your choice of fonts, so they maintain consistency throughout the design. Is it uncluttered? Is there, are there too many items on the page, so you just get overburdened with the amount of stuff? And typically, and overall, I want to try to sell them the message here tonight of just avoiding the usual. So back to the norms. So what did I really mean by challenging the norms, those poor norms? So if you've been using Tableau for a little while or developing content, the next slide I'm going to show you will be very familiar. What I'm trying to avoid is this situation where we send users to a page on Tableau server, they end up looking at a viz like this, or this, or this, or this, and then eventually I'm no longer happy about looking at those dimensions and measures on screen. I'm looking much more like this. And so what have I been doing to challenge these norms? Well, nothing, like all those crazy artistic visitors that I showed you before, but beyond some of the design approaches that I've mentioned, I like to focus on content where the data is regularly refreshed. So this has introduced a maintenance challenge, but in a business environment, it's often essential because we almost always need to see how the latest numbers compare to yesterday, last month, or to this time last year. It's the really low-hanging fruit for producing those data-driven insights. To produce these highly usable visits, it's crucial that we always are on the lookout for new and interesting ways to solve problems, whether you discover them yourself or you lean on the Tableau community. And it's also important to keep up with the new features that are being rolled out all the time. So I'd like to show you a couple of initiatives that are getting extremely high engagement within Australia Post. So this first one, we call the Daily Dash, or the Daily Dash of Revenue. And you may think, what's this weird, long, skinny trail of tiles and bar charts? Well, maybe it'll make more sense when you consider that it's designed to be viewed like this. The idea being that managers and other leaders within the company can whip out their phone during their morning commute. These days, that commute being from the kitchen table to the study. That they can get instant updates about the previous day's results for their particular business unit, and then compare that to the same day last year, how the whole month is trending and how these figures stack up against forecasts. So what techniques did I use when putting this together that sort of challenged the norms? Well, a few little ones. Obviously nothing that, employed anything that was particularly crazy artistic, but there was one problem that I think is probably the most common problem that we face and that we would hear about from the Tableau community of users in our organizations. And that problem is typically, why is it so slow? We see, why do we keep seeing the spinning circle? I don't want to see the spinning circle. Why is it so slow? Why is Tableau so slow? Well, in this case, it's super fast. It's instant, in fact, because it's emailed. And the user doesn't interact at all. So it actually presented an interesting challenge coming from a perspective of designing interactive visualizations. Creating this that I knew was not going to be interactive was quite an interesting way to change my approach. and also uses a couple of simple techniques that are highly effective. So this little progress bar to show how we're tracking against budget, that's just a stacked bar chart with a transparent background. And when the measure meets or exceeds target, the whole thing turns green. It was so simple. The daily variances, I've actually had to blend the data source on itself, so do a self join effectively, and that's allowed me to then show the remaining days in the month. I've broken a couple of rules with this in this approach, and I think sometimes we should break rules. Often we're told that we shouldn't use red and green because I think 10% of men are colorblind. Well, in this case, our users like it. they like saying that the green is positive and beneficial. They instantly see that red is bad. So it works for the community. So that's okay. Another one is of the rules that I think about when I think of rules that are broken here. I am very familiar with a white paper that was written a couple of years ago by Alan Eldridge called Designing Efficient Workbooks. And he had a small group of no-nos that he said really should be avoided when using Tableau. And they were printing, report bursting, data export as a primary function, and complex crosstabs, like basically replicating Excel. Now, that second one, report bursting, well, that's what this is doing. Every morning, we send out this as a daily update. And, well, frankly, it works. It's working really well. So how do I think I can make this better? Well, there actually are a couple of new features coming soon to Tableau that hopefully I can take advantage of. I heard about this during one of the TC19 presentations as well. I think it was when it was the devs on stage. They said that soon we'll have the option of triggering a subscription based upon the successful refresh of a data extract. And so they showed this dialogue, and typically down here we would choose a schedule with a time on it. But yeah, soon we're going to have this option to say that the email will be sent when the data refreshes. So that's going to be a very interesting option for us to add into the mix. Additionally, there is a feature that's currently in beta. Yes, it is 2020.2 called metrics. And this is a snapshot from some of the promotional material for it. And as you can see, and there's elements in here that align, reasonably neatly to what we're doing there with the daily dash. Okay, so next up, I want to show you a very different initiative that we've got going. And this one is designed for use by our post office managers out at the outlets, out at the post offices. So what we're looking at here is a SharePoint page with an embedded connection to a Tableau object on Tableau server. Now, what's a bit different to the standard experience here, that is within that SharePoint page, there's probably a couple of thousand lines of JavaScript code that I've been able to author because of thankfully I've had that web development background. And so I'm hooked into the JavaScript API to control and automate much of the functionality and make it much more usable. So I'm going to just zoom in quickly to show some of how the users interact with this. Now, first of all, they'll click that big blue button to sign into the server, and then a little window pops up. Now, when that window pops up there, that was actually our single sign-on process passing their credentials to Tableau server. Then we have a little message that guides them through to tell them what stage of the process they're at, connecting to the login dialog. And then we have, I just want to show that stage there one more time. Then the next stage of the process is this one here. So we have, once we've established the login, Then there's a function that executes to go and grab a dashboard that lists the most recently the timestamp for the most recent data extract refresh. So that's telling the user that's what it's doing. And then this timestamp ends up sitting down here, and we connect to this dashboard that we call My Performance. Now, using the JavaScript API within this embedded object and writing the code to control what's going on, I'm able to customize the navigation experience. So I'm just going to play the video a bit longer and show exactly what's happening. And then it'll show this menu that pops down. There we go, eventually. Yep, okay, cool. And we can see there that it's actually made up of 7 different workbooks. And they're essentially one dashboard per workbook. We split them up that way because if we find that it's more efficient, we get better performance out of embedding the data into the workbooks, and we can have more than one person working on development at the same time. So another thing I'll say just real quick is that you shouldn't try to take any screenshots and draw your own conclusions about Australia Post performance in November 2019, because this is all dummy data. As you can see, there's 0 and -4. Yeah, it's just all random numbers. So if I keep playing, you'll see that demonstrated. Oops. And I thought I was going to avoid the problems of live demos. Oh well, you'll just have to believe me. Okay, so just want to show a couple of examples of the content within the individual workbooks that make up the dashboards that are part of this suite that we call the Post Office Dash. So we have one, My Financials, which is just all the numbers for people who just want to see all the raw numbers. If they really want it, give it to them. There's nothing particularly special in here except for some nice little set actions that allow particular sections to be expanded and collapsed. Next up, we have the My Customers view. So we have this little tornado down the bottom. So the post offices can see which of their customers are declining on their revenue over the period that's being analysed, and which are increasing, or which are generally for the period are generating the highest revenue. But one of the most enjoyable and fun little pieces of this work that gets a lot of engagement is this My Benchmark section. So this one here, and I've chosen a fun little, well, an outlet with a funny name. It's called Spit Junction. Why not? And what we're doing here is that we're actually comparing the Spit Junction post office to every other post office in its own cohort, which is the area of New South Wales / ACT Metro Northeast. So we've got 35 offices or outlets in the group. The green ones for each of these metrics represent those that are ranked first. The red ones represent those that are ranked last. And the blue ones represent Spit Junction. And all the grey are the rest from the top, rank 1 to rank 35. Now, there's 2 different views in here, and there's this next one, which is a comet chart. I'll thank Andy Cotgrave and others for the inspiration for this one. So I'll just play this, and so you can see, we'll switch over to the comet chart, which shows for this particular outlet, Spit Junction, how are they performing last month to this month. So we can see what the movement is. If they're going up, it's green and more intense. If it's they're going up a long way. If they're going down, then it's red. If they're barely moved, then it's grey. Okay, so that's a fun little piece of the suite. So what do I think could be improved on this one? Well, just like Paul and our other presenter, I'm so sorry, Angela, thank you, have already shown us. I've I've thought that this benchmarking tool is perfectly positioned for animations. So this is actually the first time that I've ever used it, was this afternoon when I finished this presentation, and I'm pretty happy with the way it looks. So first of all, what I'm going to do is I'll play the existing experience where we switch from November to December to January. And then you'll see how the dots move from frame to frame. Okay, so I'm switching. And then watch the blue dots in particular, which represent the Spit Junction post office. And there we go, they've moved a little bit. And then again. Now I'm going to introduce the animations. And this I'm very impressed with. What a really great effect to show how each individual item in the list is moving, especially when they move from one of the gray dots, which is not the selected entry or the top or the bottom. They actually change size as well as position and color. So I hope you like that one. Okay, so this is a list of the details of all of those crazy, impressive artistic visuals that I showed you earlier. I'll give that to Paul to send around to attendees. Now, so as I said, Tableau Fanboy is my Twitter handle, and I have a blog. Look, feel free to look me up. There's very few articles in my blog, partially because I think the content should be something unique and not on a topic that has been covered over and over and over again. But I have to admit that 3 articles in 4 years is pretty slack. Again, I rarely post on Twitter, but you should definitely check out all the people that I follow. There's some amazingly clever people out there, and from whom I get regular inspiration. Thank you very much.
Fantastic. Well, thanks, Paul. I mean, that was absolutely wonderful. I mean, you went through such a wide variety of both inspirational and practical examples there. So absolutely wonderful stuff. Caroline, if you can pass back to me so that I can share my last screen, I'll just wrap up and talk about next events and that sort of stuff. Fantastic. Thank you very much. A quick share, and we should be up and running. So again, once again, thank you very much for all of our fantastic speakers. I want you to give a virtual round of applause again for Angela, Keat, and Paul. I know these are difficult circumstances, but it's great getting the community back together and sharing some of this passion, and we can clearly see the passion across each one of those speakers. So just quickly wrapping up, and again, hopefully you've got your pizza now. My wife has delivered her pizza, and I've got my my Corona beer here. So hopefully you're all having an opportunity to enjoy some pizza and beers as well. But Kayla, I think if you're still on the call, Kayla, would you like to just speak a little bit to some of these fantastic Tableau resources that are available? Do you want to speak quickly to those?
Absolutely. Thanks, Paul. So I just wanted to highlight there's a range of resources that are available for the community at the moment to get the most of this time while working remotely. So the first thing is that we're offering at Tableau free 90-day e-learning subscriptions. So you'd be aware that we have free online videos, but our premium e-learning platform is now available for anybody, whether they have a Tableau license or not, for up to 90 days. So you can activate your subscription up until June 30th, and that will give you access to over 12 learning paths. So you can engage in a learning path that's suitable for your role. So whether you're an author or a site administrator or a community leader, you can use those learning paths to learn about your role with Tableau. And you can actually engage in assessments and achieve a digital badge at the end of that learning path and add that to your LinkedIn profile as well. So definitely make the most of that while that's available and free. The second thing is that we're offering a 50% discount on all Tableau specialist desktop examinations, so you can get certified at half price. So that's available up until June 30th. And then the third thing is that Tableau's actually created a what we're calling a COVID data hub. And essentially, that's a resource that you can use to get a trusted source of information on what's happening with COVID cases around the world. We've designed it to help organizations lead through this change and lead through this crisis. So it's a ready-to-use data stream that's been compiled by the Johns Hopkins University, as well as some other trusted resources. And it also includes dashboard starters. So you can actually download some dashboards designed around COVID cases around the world, and you can view those alongside your organization's data as well to help you lead through the change. And so those decisions around COVID can be made with confidence. So if you Google the COVID Data Hub by Tableau, you'll come across that there. Any questions, definitely reach out to Paul or myself, and we can help you get set up with that Data Hub with your desktop specialist examination and with the 90-day e-learning subscription.
Fantastic, Taylor. This is great. I mean, you know, I know personally myself, I'm busier than I ever have been at home, so I don't have a lot more time for training, but I know that there are some people who are out there who could definitely use some of this time to hone some of their skills and get some of those extra certifications, so that's fantastic. The only other thing that I just wanted to mention, and I won't pass to Lam just now, but I will click on this link and just call up the link. But Matt had, I'm just going to bring this onto my screen, onto my other screen here. So this was specifically a Tableau consultant data visualization job that's come up. So if you do a search on LinkedIn for data visualization consultants in Melbourne, in particular through this group SLALOM. So if you search for them, you'll find this particular job. But it is a real job. It is advertising right now. I received a couple of emails from the folks who are advertising that as we speak. So definitely real opportunities there that are out there, even though we're sort of shut down. But obviously, as things sort of calm down and we come out the other side, there will be great opportunities. And then just to finish, we've got some great comments coming in from the online chat and through the Q&A. Everybody being very complimentary again of the speakers. Fantastic session. We're going to have another session probably in June because this is early May. And in fact, we were supposed to be sort of a couple of days ago in the previous month. So I think June probably will be our next session. Maybe mid to late June. We're going to have another, it's just difficult to do our hands-on exercises remotely. So what we'll probably do is we'll do another 3 speakers, probably remotely again, depending on how things are working out, but we'll probably assume that we're going to do things remotely. I've already got some great speakers already lined up, but don't forget ever, if you're interested in speaking, as you can see, it's a great community, supportive. So please, by all means, don't hesitate to reach out to me on LinkedIn or via email or any of the other usual sort of sources and all that sort of stuff. Thank you very much, everybody. Please stay safe out there. Please grab yourself some pizza, grab a beer. Sorry, we can't furbish that this time around, but when we're back in the city again, we'll definitely do that. And thanks again, especially to all those folks who joined us from London and Queensland, Sydney, across Australia and across the world. Very much appreciate you continuing to support and share your passion, all that sort of stuff. I'll look forward to seeing everybody again very, very soon. Take care, everybody, and watch out in the usual channels for announcements of the next sessions and all that sort of stuff. Thanks very much, everybody. See you again soon.
Thank you, Paul.
Thank you.